Good day. Welcome to Dutchess Talk Radio. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Tompkins Mayor Bank, Robison Oil, the house that service built, by Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth throughout the Hudson Valley to a fiduciary standard. By White Plains Hospital, by Michael Labriola Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk. And here on the Cup of Joe political show, we are joined by the mayor of the city of Poughkeepsie, Robert Rolison. Mayor, welcome to Dutchess Talk Radio, the Cup of Joe political show. And we're 18 months into this pandemic now, and we seem to take a step forward, take a step back, take a step forward, another step back. Since day one, since COVID hit the city of Poughkeepsie, how much of an effect has COVID had on everything that goes on around this city?
Well, it has a profound effect. It did in the beginning, especially when we did not know as a community, as families and individuals, as businesses, really what was going to happen. A lot of things came pretty fast. I know the week of my state of the city last year, around March 11th, is when things really started to accelerate. We were keeping an eye on things, and as it sort of traversed up into the Hudson Valley, I made the decision the morning of my state of the city to cancel it because it didn't make a lot of sense with the data that we knew then of putting a lot of people in the same place. And really, literally after that, there was this cascading effect throughout, especially New York State and suburban communities or urban cities, that we had a problem, and it was going to probably accelerate, which we know it did.
Mm-hmm. How well do you think the city has handled this pandemic?
I think the city handled it very well, considering all the things that were thrown at us very quickly, and again, without a lot of
preparations.
A lot of preparations, a lot of data, a lot of science. Didn't know, just trying to make sure that we did everything we could to keep people safe. Our citizens, our workforce, our surrounding communities. We tried to coordinate to make sure that we were, kind of all trying to do the same thing at the same time, which really showed the level of cooperation and partnerships with our local governments. Taking guidance from the state or guidance that wasn't exactly crystal clear because they were dealing with the same issues that we were. But we looked to the county, who looked to the state, who looked to the federal government, and we made the best decisions that we could based on that information that was coming in every day, right? And things were changing. And what I will say, our top priority was, and always has been, and will continue to be, is the projection of confidence in your local government, delivery of basic city services that were necessary then and are obviously necessary now. We prioritized how we were going to conduct city government.
Things change every day still, as we see. What have been the key initiatives within the city of Poughkeepsie to help major stakeholders, people like small businesses, landlords, renters, anybody and everybody with a stake in the city of Poughkeepsie?
Well, I think, the first thing was, even before we started to receive federal monies to make, those critical investments in certain aspects of city life, was really just to do everything we could to make sure that our community, our business community, knew that we were on top of it, right? We were here 7 days a week. We were on phone calls, Zooms. I mean, everything that we could get involved with, we did, so that we could give the information to our community. And then also making sure that the community could talk to us, what their concerns were, what their fears were, what their suggestions were, and how we could respond with the assets that we had to make it easier for them. And that's what we did initially. That's what we did through the height of the pandemic, and that's what we actually continue to do today. We're still making adjustments as these adjustments need to be made because things are still evolving, so to speak, whether it was from the height of the pandemic to sort of, the pandemic dwindling down, right, where we saw the numbers start to drop. And then obviously what we're still knowing are challenges related to the pandemic that it was at its height to what it is now, and then to what maybe we might expect in the coming weeks and months. Hopefully we will not see some of the things that people are really starting to worry about, but we're prepared.
Mm-hmm. Now, has Poughkeepsie received, you brought up stimulus money, federal stimulus money. Has the city received enough money from the feds funneled through the state? And I know this money is earmarked for certain things.
Well, this is a great question, John. So I think to put a little context to it. So because we're an entitlement community, which means we receive federal community development block grant money, we're a CDBG eligible community. And that on every year, we receive approximately $800,000 from Housing and Urban Development to invest in certain types of things in certain parts of the city based on income, poverty, and neighborhoods in need, to use that term. So because we are an entitlement community, we received two tranches of federal aid targeted for COVID-19 with specific guidelines that we could use those monies on. And this goes back, right? This goes back to last year when we received close to $900,000 in two funding streams to distribute to various resources that would help people who have been affected by COVID. So, we were using things such as testing outreach, testing locations if necessary. Then it went into vaccinations, right? How do we get people connected to vaccinations? We partnered with the county for testing initially to get people who needed transportation to these testing sites that were becoming available, because in the beginning there weren't very many, and then they started to expand as capacity and people were able to coordinate the testing aspect of the pandemic. And then also monies went to things such as rent relief, small business loans. We are now we've entered into an agreement to have a lawyer from Legal Services of the Hudson Valley assigned to City Court to help with evictions, which are going to start coming at the end of the month because they have been on hold for so long. So these are the types of monies that we have spent out in the community. I think probably upwards of, if I said 900,000, we've spent in the neighborhood of a little over $700,000 of those monies, earmarked those monies for those types of resources for the community, because there's been much suffering, right? There's been the emotional loss of loved ones and friends and community members. There have been individuals who became sick with the virus. I was one of them. I had COVID in Thanksgiving of last year. Luckily, everything worked out well, but that's not been the case for everyone, right? So we wanted to make sure that we were continuing to identify and partner with too, John. A very important thing is that, government at the size of, say, the city of Poughkeepsie, and governments even below us, smaller, less resources, really just in capabilities. So we were not administering these programs ourselves. We partnered with the county. We partnered with Hudson River Housing, Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, food pantries, Dutchess County through their resources that they have to get these monies out to people so they could be served by them.
Now, all this money that you get from the state, from the feds, and I know, like we've talked, it's earmarked for certain things. You're out there on the streets every day. You're in the trenches of the city of Poughkeepsie every day. Can you go to the state? Can you go to the feds and say, hey, it's great. We appreciate we got this amount of money for this item, for this issue, but maybe we need to move something from column A to column B to column C back to column A. Can you do that? Or is it hard and fast? No, you have to, Mayor, use it for this and that's it.
No, I wouldn't say, John, it's hard and fast. I would say that, what you've seen, because the federal government, as large as it is, the state government, as large as it is, none of these governments have had, in recent memory, in recent lifetimes, have had to deal with something as large and as critical and a national public health emergency. And so, you don't always get it right. We know that, right? And government can often be criticized for not being fast enough or not having enough guidance, or as to your point, being a little too strict and narrow focused. But we have a really good relationship, and I think this is a key word, relationships, right? We have very good relationships. I myself personally, as mayor and city staff, with other levels of government, whether it's the county, whether it's the state, whether it's the federal government, through our federal representatives here in the city of Poughkeepsie, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand. I mean, I know these individuals personally because I have been involved as an elected official since 2003, so my days back in the county legislature. Relationships are very important. And then, you talk about, my personal friendship with Mark Molinaro. We served in the legislature together. Senator Serino, the late Assemblyman Frank Scartatos, who did so much for this city. I know because, he pledged his support after I was elected in 2016 to do things. He did that. Senator Serino, you can go right on down the list. And then, our fellow mayors and supervisors within the county, we really work well together. And I will tell you the one thing, and I say this a lot, and I will never stop saying it. Becoming a mayor in a city, right? In a city that certainly has had its fiscal challenges and continues to do so because of legacy issues that we inherited back in 2016. I don't have time for politics, John. Just don't. And I have been a registered Republican since I turned age 18. I work with anyone who wants to work with me, regardless of your political affiliation. We don't check it at the door, my friend. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. And you can't get things done without those relationships.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And I'll tell you just a great example of that is, so when back, I think it was in 2016, we started a Mid-Hudson Mayors Association group that met quarterly in the city halls of the different cities within the Mid-Hudson region. Poughkeepsie, Beacon, Newburgh, Middletown, Kingston, Port Jervis, Hudson, and the ones that were most actively involved. Right. So when COVID hit, we this is through Pattern for Progress, which is the one that coordinates this for us. We decided as a group really need to get on the line, the phone, or a Zoom call as it turned into Zooms. We have met every Thursday, with an exception of a few weeks, since April of last year with the Mid-Hudson mayors. We just literally started every other week. And I can tell you that, getting back to politics, right, just for a second.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'm the only Republican in the group of all these mayors, right? You know what? We're all buds. We're all close friends because mayors work with mayors. We stick up for one each other. What happens in Middletown is the same kind of stuff that happens in Poughkeepsie, and we share our experiences together. And it's just been another reason, and not that I needed it, is like, this whole political thing's out the window for me, right? I mean, you have to be a member of a party. I get it. But, this is not the time for that stuff. And it pains me to see where we are right now as a country, as communities divided with discourse that is much harmful, not civil, not productive. And we need to get back to, let's check the egos and the agendas at the door. You can have them. You can have an ego, you can have an agenda. That's okay. But to get stuff done, let's leave that off to the side and let's check some of the boxes.
Mayor of the city of Poughkeepsie, Robert Rolison, here on Dutchess Talk Radio. I'm John Marino. This is the Cup of Joe political show. Mayor, COVID cases are rising again around Dutchess County. Vaccinations going down. How concerned are you about this now? The new Delta variant, the new Lambda variant from seemingly Peru coming our way now, and other variants that we may not know about, but we might still get hit with.
Well, I mean, I think, again, someone, who had COVID, I have a little bit of a different perspective, I guess, because I had it.
And people, I'm gonna say here, people I know who've had it have very different perspectives on their experiences and whether or not we should be vaccinated, all of us.
Yeah, well, I absolutely believe everyone should get vaccinated that can. I follow this as much as I think most people do, and what we're hearing, if you are vaccinated, your chances of becoming seriously ill with at least any of these variants now, or the traditional COVID illness, is certainly lessened. The availability of vaccinations is really not a challenge anymore. It is really just making sure people know the real good reason and science to get vaccinations and to know where you can get them. But we need to be diligent, never really keeping our eye off of, the data. As someone who checked the Dutchess County numbers every single day for months and months and months.
And you still do.
And I still do. I looked the other day, I think it was either yesterday or Sunday, I think the number for the city of Poughkeepsie was 13, which certainly is, you wish it was 0, but 13 is not like it was at the height of the pandemic in the high 2s and low 3s. Mm-hmm. The hospitalization rate, the amount of people in the hospital with COVID was like at 2. So our numbers in this county are still very low, which is a good thing. It doesn't mean it's not going to change. It doesn't mean that we can't just say, oh, we're all good and don't worry about it. We need to be vigilant, and we need to do what the doctors and what people in the medical field are saying. And I haven't heard anyone with any credentials that we believe in are telling you not to get a vaccine. So that to me is the key, because if they're going to use vaccinations as a benchmark to hold off reimposing mask mandates and other types of things, which are going to directly affect the recovery of this community, this city, and our region, when we need to do things that are going to help our small businesses out and our large businesses as well, because they're the lifeblood of the community. We need to keep the economy moving, and we're moving in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. But we can't be complacent.
Is it a matter then of just following the science, continuing to follow the science?
Yeah, and I, again, it's this is something. I guess if you and I had $10 for every time we heard that term, "follow the science," right? And then the retort to that is well, we're not following the science because John, you say it's the science here, and I say it's the science over there. Right. So who's telling you what the real science is? And I get it; it's confusing. People use it for political gain, unfortunately, too. Especially when it comes to masking. Do we mask up? Do we not mask up? And they're talking about now, CDC changing guidelines. And look, I have faith in institutions such as the CDC and things like that, right? I mean, and I know that they have their challenges as well internally and what they think is right, and they want to err on the side of caution. But I think we have to make also the individual decisions for ourselves, which, you're in charge of your own person, right? And if you want to get a vaccine, you get it. If you don't, you don't. You want to wear a mask? Well, you don't. And then those are things that we all have to take into consideration.
And worry about the consequences.
Right. And it's interesting too, and I feel pretty good about this, was that, I've been in places where the majority of people, especially stores, are still masked up.
Right.
Which is fine. If you want to wear a mask, wear it. It doesn't hurt anybody. And if you're protecting yourself and you're going to protect the community, then good for you. You see people that are driving in cars wearing masks. There's nothing that says that that's a bad idea. Do what you feel comfortable in. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that, the individual responsibilities are respected. But the larger the larger aspects of masks or no masks or getting back into the things that we had at the height of this pandemic, we don't want to go there. We don't want to ever be there again.
We see the state is earmarking $15 million, appropriating $15 million to low COVID vaccination communities. It's great that they're putting up the money, but how can that money be spent wisely so people know I have to go do this? I'd better get a vaccine.
Well, it's a conversation that we have on a continual basis. I can run around till I'm blue in the face telling people, I think you should get a vaccine.
Right.
There are other people who are closer, more trusted to certain people in the community than I would be, or you would be, or anyone. Family, friends, your doctor. I don't think there are too many doctors who are going to advocate for not getting a vaccine. Right. And, a lot of people have doctors. And then also, too, there's a lot of people that don't have doctors. They're not hooked into a medical network, which is a challenge and an obstacle. And I think, the faith-based communities play a
clergy, yes,
a big role. And we've had those meetings. So we're not taking anything for granted. There is no one person or no one entity that's got the corner on the market of getting the word out. It takes a community effort to get to people who sometimes, are hard to reach. And that's something that we have really focused on. We focused on that with testing. We've focused that on with vaccinations, and we continue to do so. And we're looking to do some things now with other aspects of our community. The ones who are really in the shadows, who have issues not only with vaccination, lack of thereof, or mental health issues, substance abuse issues, addiction issues, housing issues. Those are folks that are tough to reach because they're in an area and a place in their lives which makes it more difficult to get to, and for them to understand the importance, especially when they're dealing with these other issues and they're in crisis. But they're just as vulnerable also to get sick and to spread.
Poughkeepsie Mayor Robert Rolison here on Dutchess Talk Radio, the Cup of Joe political show. I'm John Marino. Mayor Rolison, the city of Poughkeepsie, how affected has the city been by this recent spate, and it's been going on for a while now, of guns, gang violence, which seems to be, in some instances, overrunning parts of our, as you point out, connected Hudson Valley, a connected tri-state area from Bridgeport to Newark, out to eastern Long Island, up into the Hudson Valley, into Dutchess County and beyond. How much has the city of Poughkeepsie been affected by all of this?
Well, we have been affected. Gun violence and the consequences of gun violence is not new to the city of Poughkeepsie or to many communities, especially urban cities who have seen those challenges before. A lot of times they are connected to one another. One shooting is connected to another, which is connected to another.
Becomes a cycle of going back and forth.
It is. And the city of Poughkeepsie has been involved in a very coordinated effort with our law enforcement and public safety partners from the federal government right on down to the state and the county and local municipalities in gun violence initiatives. The city of Poughkeepsie is a gun-involved violence elimination city called GIVE, where we get state funding every year to combat gun violence, and that has not been something that we have not taken full advantage of, using real crime data and analytics to go after the locations where gun violence is happening. Unfortunately now, John, it is more indiscriminate than it once was. That is the scary factor to this. I was a police officer for 26 years, and the majority of acts of gun violence took place under the cover of darkness. What you've seen over the years, not just recently, but over the years, individuals from time to time, there'd be a shooting during the day, and we would recoil and like, wow, that is scarier than the middle of the night issue. Even though it's just as deadly and just as troubling, it's scarier because it means people don't care about doing something under the cover of darkness. They're going to do it in broad daylight.
And the implications of that, too, where it scares people away from just being out on the streets of the city.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the majority of folks are not out on the street in the middle of the night.
Right.
And so what we've seen, and some communities have seen it worse than we have, and this has been going on for the past couple of years, really accelerated last year and into this year, where the indiscriminate gun violence, and also one of the most troubling aspects of this is the perpetrators are getting younger, the victims are getting younger, and there is this loss of value of life where children as young as 13, 14, 15, and 16 becoming victims of gun violence, perpetrating gun violence. And that is a troubling aspect of where we're going as a society, right? And we've got to be more involved. We've got to do more, and we are. And we have pretty much led the way in this area in combating this using a multifaceted approach. It's not you can't lock up people your way out of this. And now you have some of the unintended consequences of bail reform and these other things that are contributing to that. The sense of lawlessness that has also sort of come over certain cities throughout the country, but especially here in New York State, where the people driving like maniacs, and it's just there's just this feeling out there because some folks feel there's no consequences. You can do what they want. You can throw in this, and I'll use the term as much as I dislike to use it to defund the police movement that is out in certain areas, not so much here in Poughkeepsie, thankfully, but that some people feel emboldened by that. And the availability of guns that get passed around between groups, and the fact that we do know that gangs with predominantly older members have targeted and recruited and used younger gang members, younger members of what they call sets, to carry out this violent actions against one another. And it's troubling. But we're always thinking about how we can make the community safer, and hopefully at some point in time, and I don't know when that is, unfortunately, we're going to see that turn the other way. I mean, the good thing is that, recently we made 2 significant arrests here in the city, 2 individuals who our department and the task forces, our working groups had identified as potential individuals involved in gun violence in the city. They were found, they were stopped, they were arrested with handguns, with ammunition. This was a few Thursdays ago. One of the individuals was wanted for homicide, indicted for homicide in Patterson, New Jersey, which shows you that they go to different communities to settle their scores. At that particular point in time, we were hopeful that some locations in the city which had been experiencing the uptick in shootings would see a decrease, which did happen. It stopped, and it was quiet until the other night when a 16-year-old was shot. Not a random act that this individual apparently may have been having some challenges with some others, was shot. Thankfully, he is going to be okay. But prior to that, it had been quiet, and we try to react to these things and to prevent further acts of violence. We have a snug team here in the city of Poughkeepsie that's funded through the state, which does just that. They're violence interrupters. Their sole purpose is to prevent other shootings. They get to know the individuals. They do not work with cooperation with the police department. They are a separate entity to stop retaliatory shootings. They have success sometimes, and sometimes they don't, because it's difficult. That's difficult work to do. So we don't rest on anything, John. It is the priority of any government is its public safety of its community, and that's our top focus.
Here we are, late summer 2021. Do you think schools will be fully reopened come September, or is this a day-by-day question too? Like we talked about, things change every day.
Well, I would say as of right now, today, they will be opening at full capacity. That is the plan. Had a meeting today with the school superintendent on a variety of issues. He and I are good friends and partners within city government and the school system. We have a cabinet, children's cabinet, which was established back in 2019, really started in January of 2020. Thankfully,
by the way, the superintendent's name is
Dr. Eric Rosser. And he brings a wealth of knowledge and educational background from the Buffalo City school system, and prior to that, Atlanta. So he has worked in large communities, and he has really made a difference in a short period of time here in the city of Poughkeepsie School District. And like so many people, didn't know that, getting hired, say, in August of 2019, he'd be confronting a pandemic and having to figure out a way to educate students outside the school buildings, which many communities did. Poughkeepsie obviously had a more difficult job of it because of the lack of technology in many of the homes for our students. Chromebooks were needed. I mean, they were operating on, that was their fly, right? Getting Chromebooks ordered, getting them out to students, getting them programmed, and they did a great job in doing that. But as we all know, we hope and we pray that we'll have a normal school opening, which is about 6 weeks away. 5 to 6, yeah.
Yep.
And that the numbers will not increase where we need to segregate again. The hybrid learning, we know that children do better when they're in school with their friends and having the one-on-one interaction with the staff. So that's the plan.
Here we are, midway of your second term in office as mayor of the city of Poughkeepsie. Now, between today and the next couple of years down the road, what do you foresee happening? What's the game plan for the city if you can obviously move past COVID and get to where you want to be, to where you want to go?
I mean, I think to put it simply, and it is certainly not simple, but to put it simply is to pick up where we left off, even though we never really stopped during COVID, but we had to do things to a lesser degree, to prioritize in ways that we would not have had to do that if we did not have a pandemic, to continue being able to guide and help the growth of the city, because the city has continued to grow. It didn't really stop, and it has taken off again at a very brisk pace. To make sure that city government functions, that people can count on city government, that they can count on public safety and city services, to enhance those services, to adjust those services, to do everything we can to keep this community feeling good about itself and feeling good about its government, and also being able to react to things that something can happen 2 seconds from now, John, that we're not prepared for.
Right.
But we need to make sure that we can respond to whatever that is. And I think, there were a couple big items, right, for me. Well, one of them was the fiscal situation, which we still are struggling with,
Right.
but we're in much better shape than we were. COVID has hurt us in that, and striving for that place where we need to be, where we're not really as concerned about some of the legacy issues that we inherited. The YMCA building, the largest blighted property in the city of Poughkeepsie that was not owned by the city. It was never owned by the city, and certainly was not owned by the city when I took office in 2016. But we developed a plan that we said internally here in City Hall, if we're able to fiscally stabilize ourselves, then we really got to concentrate on what we can do as a city to have something happen there at some point in time. So what we did, we ended up taking possession of the property in 2019. We were in a place where we thought that made sense. And then our partnership with the 35 Montgomery Street Coalition, the county executive coming in and saying, okay, you've got the building, I've got the money, let's make something happen. And so that now is real, right? And so while it's not done by any stretch of the imagination, we're moving in the right direction there. Love to be able to see our outstanding fund balance deficit lowered even more down to a level that is either completely eradicated or darn close to it. I guess I'll end with this particular part of that question, John. I just want to leave the place better than we found it, and that whoever becomes the next mayor in 2.5 years, while they'll have lots of challenges to deal with, will not have as many as I had, because we were able to get some of them out of the way.
We can leave on this thought. Time magazine has listed the Hudson Valley among its top 100 greatest places to visit in America. And we have to say thank you and to all the other leaders for the leadership that led Time magazine to give the Hudson Valley this designation, to award the Hudson Valley this designation.
Yeah, not surprised. I mean, the Hudson Valley is, besides my absolute love for this city and this community and this region, it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, I know lots of folks who have come here from other parts of the country and met people from other parts of the world who have said it's absolutely beautiful. The Hudson River Valley, you can't duplicate that in too many places.
No question. Yeah.
So it's a good place to live, good place to raise a family, good place to be. And I'm, just blessed to be a small part of it for these 8 years. And then obviously the things I did prior, but these will be the years that I will definitely look back on and be able to say that, we did everything that we could to keep this place a special place.
Mayor of Poughkeepsie, Robert Rolison, here on Dutchess Talk Radio. I'm John Marino, the Cup of Joe political show. Mayor, we thank you and hope we get to talk again real soon. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, please let me know. You want me back on? Just give me a ring.
Without a doubt, great insight you've had all throughout here, and all the best as the city continues to evolve from COVID.
Yeah.
Like we've said, back forth. Hopefully, when we take a step forward, if we take a step back again, it's not too big of a step. And hopefully,
like to go. If you got to go back a little bit, we'll go 4 ahead and then maybe a half a back. Something like that.
All right.
Thanks,
we'll talk again, Mayor Robert.
Yes, sir.
You're
Be
on
well.
Dutchess Talk Radio. You too, Mayor. Thank you, and glad you've made a great recovery from COVID. Your battle.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you. Here on Dutchess Talk Radio, we are made possible by Tompkins Mayor Pack Bank, Robison Oil, the house that service built, by Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis by Hightower, Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard throughout the Hudson Valley and beyond. White Plains Hospital, Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armunco, part of what we do here at Dutchess Talk Radio and at Sharc Creative. Catch all of our Dutchess Orange, Westchester, Rockland, also our Putnam and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.